The date is March 29th, 1987. The air inside the Pontiac Silverdome is electric, thick with anticipation as over 93,000 fans await the spectacle about to unfold. WrestleMania 3, the pinnacle event of professional wrestling, is reaching its crescendo. Amidst a card stacked with talent, one match carries a peculiar gravitas, a hair versus hair bout between two of the most charismatic personalities in the World Wrestling Federation. The arena darkens momentarily before being bathed in a garish pink light. Suddenly, a rotund figure emerges, adorned in pink tights, excessive makeup, and flanked by his manager Jimmy Hart. The crowd erupts in a chorus of jeers as Adrian Adonis, the self-proclaimed adorable one, glides down the aisle with exaggerated femininity. His transformation from rugged biker to flamboyant eccentric represents perhaps the most audacious character reinvention the wrestling world has witnessed to this point. Opposite him stands rowdy Roddy Piper, the beloved anti-hero, making his farewell appearance before a hiatus to pursue Hollywood ambitions. The stakes couldn't be higher, as the loser will suffer the humiliation of having his head shaved on wrestling's grandest stage. As the bell rings, the Silverdome becomes a cauldron of noise, the audience hanging on every maneuver, every taunt, every moment of this theatrical confrontation. In this match, Adonis is at the zenith of his villainous prowess, his every gesture calculated to elicit maximum contempt, his wrestling acumen sharply contrasting with his outlandish appearance. This juxtaposition of a skilled technical wrestler wrapped in a package of deliberate absurdity exemplifies what makes Adrian Adonis such a compelling antagonist during wrestling's golden era. He has mastered the art of triggering nuclear heat, of making audiences despise him with such fervor that they will pay handsomely to witness his demise. The bout concludes with Piper emerging victorious, Adonis subjected to the promised humiliation as electric clippers strip away his bleached blonde locks. The crowd roars with approval. What few among those 93,000 spectators could have possibly imagined was that this moment marked the beginning of the end for Adrian Adonis. In little more than a year after this pinnacle performance, his promising career, and indeed his life, will be abruptly and tragically extinguished, far from the spotlight of fame. This is the story of Keith Adonis Frankie, better known as Adrian Adonis, a tale of talent, transformation, triumph, and ultimately tragedy. Born on September 15, 1953, in Buffalo, New York, Frankie was the adopted son of Kenneth and Hortense Frankie. A natural athlete, he captured a Section 6 wrestling title in 1970, but soon abandoned academics, restless for something greater. After briefly testing his strength in the Canadian Football League, he ultimately found his true calling in the squared circle. His journey to wrestling stardom began like many of his contemporaries, in the unforgiving crucible of regional territories. The late 1970s saw professional wrestling still entrenched in its territorial system, with numerous promotions controlling different geographical areas across North America. Trained by Fred Atkins, Frankie debuted in 1974 as Keith Franks, before ultimately reinventing himself as Adrian Adonis, a rugged leather-clad brawler. In Pacific Northwest Wrestling, he first joined forces with Roddy Piper, only to later turn against him, capturing the Pacific Northwest Tag Team Championship alongside Ron Starr by dethroning Piper and Killer Brooks, before ultimately falling to the Kiwi Sheepherders. Adonis then cut his teeth in the Minneapolis-based American Wrestling Association. In these formative years, Adonis bore little resemblance to the character that would later define him. Instead, he portrayed a motorcycle-riding tough guy, a bruiser whose physique, while not chiseled, conveyed legitimate threat. His natural athleticism belied his stocky frame. Adonis moved with a surprising agility for a man of his build, executing drop kicks and flying maneuvers that wrestlers half his size would struggle to perform. Adonis soon formed a notable tag team with Jesse the Body Ventura, collectively known as the East-West Connection. The pairing made perfect sense. Two leather-wearing, imposing figures whose chemistry and complementary styles created a sum greater than its parts. Together, they captured the World Tag Team Championship, establishing Adonis as a credible performer worthy of carrying championship gold. This success caught the eye of Vince McMahon, who was in the process of transforming his father's regional Northeastern promotion into a national entertainment juggernaut. As part of McMahon's strategy to accumulate talent from across the territorial landscape, Adonis was brought into the World Wrestling Federation in 1981. his reputation as a rugged brawler preceding him. Initially, the Federation positioned Adonis with the persona he had cultivated. He formed another successful tag team with Dick Murdoch, dubbed the North-South Connection, capturing the Tag Team Championship in 1984. These early Federation years saw Adonis solidify his standing as a reliable performer, capable of delivering quality matches against a variety of opponents. His technical wrestling ability, often overlooked in retrospect due to his later character work, was substantive and respected among his peers. However, as the mid-1980s approached, the wrestling landscape was changing dramatically. McMahon's vision of sports entertainment emphasized larger-than-life personalities and clear delineations between heroes and villains. Character became paramount, sometimes even at the expense of in-ring prowess. It was in this evolving environment that Adrian Adonis would undergo his most significant transformation. By 1985, Adonis's physique had changed considerably. Years on the road, with its attendant lifestyle of fast food and limited exercise opportunities, had added significant weight to his frame. Rather than attempt to disguise this physical transformation, the Federation creative team chose to incorporate it into a radical character overhaul. The leather-clad biker would disappear, replaced by something wrestling audiences had never quite seen before. The metamorphosis began gradually. Adonis started appearing with bleached blonde hair and more flamboyant attire. He adopted the nickname Adorable Adrian Adonis and began exhibiting effeminate mannerisms. Soon he was arriving to the ring in garish pink outfits, wearing excessive makeup and carrying a spray bottle of perfume he called Fragrance. His entrance music changed to a deliberately saccharine tune, and he began hosting a talk show segment called The Flower Shop, serving as a counterpoint to Piper's popular Piper's Pit. This character transformation was controversial even by 1980s standards. The portrayal relied heavily on stereotypes and was designed specifically to antagonize the predominantly blue-collar, conservative wrestling audience of the era. By presenting a character that challenged conventional notions of masculinity, the Federation had crafted a villain guaranteed to generate visceral reactions. In an era before political correctness entered the mainstream lexicon, Adonis's character pushed boundaries in ways that would be considered problematic by contemporary standards. Yet beneath the stereotyping lay something more nuanced, as Adonis's commitment to the character was total and unwavering. Where lesser performers might have portrayed such a role with a winking acknowledgement of its absurdity, Adonis embraced it with conviction. His willingness to fully immerse himself in a character that subjected him to ridicule demonstrated a rare professional courage. In a business where many wrestlers were protective of their image, Adonis prioritized entertainment value over personal dignity. This dedication did not go unnoticed by his peers. Jake the Snake Roberts would later remark that Adonis was the most underrated wrestler he had ever worked with, citing his psychological understanding of wrestling storytelling. Bobby the Brain Heenan, among the most respected minds in wrestling history, considered Adonis one of the business's most naturally gifted performers. Adonis's character transformation coincided with his integration into one of the Federation's most memorable feuds. When Roddy Piper took a hiatus from the Piper's Pit segment, Adonis seized the opportunity to establish the Flower Shop in its place. This naturally led to tension between the two charismatic personalities, culminating in various confrontations where they destroyed each other's set pieces. The juxtaposition between Piper's aggressive, traditional masculinity and Adonis's flamboyant presentation created a compelling dynamic that captivated audiences. Their rivalry culminated in the aforementioned WrestleMania 3 match, a bout that, while overshadowed by the historic Hulk Hogan vs. Andre the Giant main event, delivered in spades in terms of emotional investment and storytelling. The match itself demonstrated Adonis's often overlooked in-ring abilities. Despite his deteriorating physical condition, he moved with purpose and precision, selling Piper's offense convincingly while generating tremendous audience reaction with his own heel tactics. The head-shaving angle provided a definitive conclusion to their feud, while simultaneously offering a natural exit point for both performers, with Piper to Hollywood and Adonis, presumably, to regroup and develop a fresh direction. Unfortunately, Adrian Adonis's post-WrestleMania 3 career would never reach the heights of his feud with Piper. In the aftermath of his high-profile loss, Adonis found himself sliding down the card. The Federation was evolving rapidly, with new stars emerging and creative priorities shifting. By late 1987, Adonis had been released from his contract. his once prominent position in the company's hierarchy a fading memory. Like many wrestlers of his era, Adonis sought to reinvent himself in other territories. He spent time in the American Wrestling Association and New Japan Pro Wrestling, attempting to recapture the momentum of his federation run. However, these efforts were hampered by his deteriorating physical condition and the shifting dynamics of the wrestling business itself. The territorial system that had nurtured his early career was collapsing under the national expansion of the World Wrestling Federation. By 1988, Adonis was working for the maritime-based Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling, a small promotion far removed from the national spotlight he had once enjoyed. It was during this period, on July 4, 1988, that tragedy struck. While traveling between shows in Newfoundland, Canada, a minivan carrying Adrian Adonis and 3 other wrestlers veered off course, missing a bridge approach. Blinded by the setting sun, driver Victor Arco swerved to avoid a moose, unwittingly sending the vehicle plunging into the creek below. Adonis, along with wrestlers Dave McKigney and Pat Kelly, perished in the accident. He was just 34 years old. The sudden, shocking nature of his death sent ripples through the wrestling community. For fans who had jeered him just months earlier, there was a sobering realization that the man behind the character was gone forever. Perhaps most poignantly, Adonis represents a cautionary tale about the ephemeral nature of wrestling fame. At WrestleMania 3, before the largest audience in North American wrestling history to that point, he was a featured performer in a marquee match. Just 16 months later, he perished far from the spotlight, his star having fallen with the same rapidity with which it had risen. As the final bell tolls on our examination of Adrian Adonis's complex legacy, perhaps we can appreciate him as he deserved to be appreciated in life. Not merely as a caricature, but as a dedicated performer who understood the true essence of his craft. The ability to make us feel something genuine in a world of carefully constructed artifice. May he rest in peace.